as Yossi referenced, our father grew up in the East End of London, one of two boys, and he would often talk about his childhood, particularly the war years. He'd often recount how during the war, when he was evacuated to the countryside of Malta, his parents ensured that despite the challenges, they still got kosher food and coordinated Hebrew studies for him and Uncle Michael. That was foundational towards our father's commitment to Yiddishkeit. Pop also spent part of the war in London and remembered the Blitz, hearing the sirens at night and having to go into the air raid shelters. His grandchildren found it fascinating to hear him talk about those war years, and he loved to share his memories and his knowledge. Pop's father, Grandpa Joe, had an embroidery factory. In fact, if many, if not all of his children got married under the pulpit that was embroidered in Grandpa Joe's factory. Pop often talked about his father, either with simple memories, by recalling his father's words to live by. They began with, "My father always said," and then that was followed with a nugget of information. I think I speak for many when I say a favorite one of his sayings went like this: "My father always said, you can learn two things from someone, how to behave and how not to behave." Bob would tell us how in the East End of London, Grandpa Joe was known for having a shame toe, a good name. And Pop always felt that was so important, more so than anything else. He strived to follow in his father's shame toe in everything he did. He was particularly proud that the accountancy practice he formed in the mid-50s was a partnership based simply on a handshake between two gentlemen. That handshake formed a successful partnership which lasted decades and never required a formal agreement. Pop's life had many ups and some real downs, yet he always remained positive, steady, and upbeat. He had tremendous Pop was incredibly dependable at every level. He'd say, "I take care of it," and he did. He was a proud Englishman, and he loved his country. He would have actually loved this weather. He would probably say, "We don't get the extremes you get in America." He knew his way around London to such an extent that if one of us, or when one of us, inevitably got lost, we'd phone him to ask for help. He'd say, "What do you see around?" And you say, "I don't know." And he'd say, "You must see something." You then describe your location with innocuous landmarks, such as a tall antenna behind an advertising board, and you know where you were and direct you home. He loved nothing more than being home, and he had many, many interests in his life, all of which he was happy to discuss. I assume many of you have heard of real tennis. His interests were broad and deep, whether it was photography, nature, gardening, cooking, travel, growing the strongest possible Mara, and the list goes on and on. He read up on the topic and became incredibly knowledgeable on the subject. He really committed to everything he did, whether that was family to which he was deeply devoted or was Yiddish. After a busy week at work, Pop would go out to Stamford Hill for a chavrusa, which is one of two chavrusas he maintained, because he felt that was the right thing to do. Pop was born the day after Yom Kippur. He'd tell us that his mother used to say that the post-Yom Kippur food came out, and so did you, which is why he always enjoyed his food. The Gemara in Masechta Shabbos discusses how a person's personality is influenced by the day of the week in which they're born. Pop was born on a Friday, and on that, the Gemara says, one who was born on a Friday will be a seeker. In the Gemara, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said that this means he will be one who seeks out mitzvahs, as most of those activities on a Friday are involved in preparing for Shabbos. And Pop did that. He loved to do mitzvahs. He coordinated the community Gemach for many years, was instrumental in his shul, donated numerous sifrei Torahs, and gave tzedakah and advice to many. Pop was nifta on Shabbos. It said that someone who passes away on a Shabbos is a tzaddik. But I want to share something else. He was nifta in the late Shabbos afternoon at the time of mincha. The Zohar says that when we say the memorial prayer of Tzidkosta during Mincha on Shabbos, because Moshe Rabbeinu, Yosef HaTzadik, and David HaMelech all died during the period of Shabbos Mincha. Another one of Pop's sayings was, "The company you keep is a reflection of you." Pop would have given his quiet smile knowing that yesterday he was in good company. Today, I'm sure He's furthering that company in Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, with some gardening tips, having the quiet word of Mashiach about moving it along, something he always yearned for. So Pop was born on a Friday and was nifta on a Shabbos, and within that time, those 92 years, he lived an incredible life. And was nifta yesterday in the way he lived his life, with strength, peace, and dignity. Over those 92 years, Pop's name evolved. Harold, HG, Mr. Goldblatt, Dad, Pop, Tati, with Steve, and to his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, many, many others, simply Zeta. But Pop, to all of us, your children, extended children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and to the generations that follow, your legacy will always be remembered simply by your Shem Tov.